Michael Jordan is generally considered the GOAT because he was so talented, so clutch, and a six-time champion. Now, there have been other greats of the game. Bill Russell is the king of rings with 11, but he didn't have MJ's universal talent that could cross any era. LeBron James brings a ton to the conversation, but some point to his 3-5 finals record. Kareem's longevity is unmatched, but he wasn't always the best player on his championship teams. Most people agree that Jordan is the best of the best, but he wouldn't be considered the GOAT without those titles, and it took him a while to get that first one. He actually went 7 years in the NBA without winning his first ring. That's longer than Russell, Kareem, Kobe Bryant. Several factors played into MJ breaking through, of course, but in today's video, we're discussing the one decision that had the biggest impact on MJ winning that first title that led to his GOAT status. Hey guys, it's Casey Kiernan, host of the AM Hoops YouTube channel. Hit us with a subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel, coming out with 3 quality NBA videos every single week. Also follow me on Instagram at AM Hoops and on Twitter at Casey Kiernan. Now, MJ's talent wasn't always unquestioned. Of course, he was once famously cut from his high school basketball team. All the greats use a chip on their shoulder to fuel them in one way or another, and MJ proved his worth to his doubters quick. He scored 30 points in the McDonald's All-American game by his senior year in high school. At North Carolina, in college, he earned ACC Freshman of the Year. He hit the game-winning shot for the 1982 National Championship. And in his rookie year, MJ was a star right away as the number 3 overall pick. The stats back it up. He averaged 28.2 points per game, shooting 51.5% from the field. He was an all-star starter that year and won Rookie of the Year. His third season was one of the most prolific in NBA history. Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain are the only players to score over 3,000 points in a single season. He won the first of his record 10 scoring titles that year. So while Jordan started out of the gate dominating the NBA in the regular season, another pattern started to develop, and that was the Bulls being blocked in the playoffs by the Bad Boy Pistons. They lost in the postseason in 1988 and 1989 to those Pistons. So the Bulls decided to fire head coach Doug Collins and promote assistant coach Phil Jackson. We all know now that Phil is maybe the best to ever do it in the NBA, but coming in, he had a lot going for him. He could command a room with his height and his deep voice, look players in the eye. He understood the psychology of team building, and he could make in-game adjustments. What he wasn't so great at was traditional X's and O's. Phil didn't have the formal training that comes with a coaching background. He was a minister's son. That's what Johnny Bach and Tex Winter were there for. Bach led the defense, while Tex was a disciple of the triangle offense. The triangle had been abandoned in the Collins years in Chicago because it was too complex to learn overnight. Instead, they used a book of plays that was designed to unlock the full potential of Michael Jordan. Not dumb at all, but clearly had its limitations. MJ referred to the triangle as, quote, that equal opportunity offense. It allows the offense to read and react to the defense and determine who gets the shot. Great players always will find a way to create their shot, which Michael would do, but it wasn't predictable, and yes, it was more equal opportunity. The triangle relies on movement and spacing. Theoretically, any player on the court has the opportunity to either pass or shoot. While the Bulls didn't always run a pure triangle, the principle was there. One example of this is a play called the blind pig. It's a backdoor play to counter pressure defense. A front court player will come up to relieve the point guard at the high post. The guard then passes to that front court player who immediately dishes to the weak side wing on a backdoor for a layup. Not a predetermined play necessarily, but the offense reading the defense. One memorable variation of the blind pig was John Paxson's championship-winning shot against the Suns in 1993. The Bulls were down 2 with 14 seconds to go. The Suns pressured MJ immediately all the way up the court. Pippen then came up to relieve, who dumped it to Horace Grant, but instead of that layup to tie, he saw Paxson wide open for the championship-winning 3. Equal opportunity. That play actually started with B.J. Armstrong passing to MJ. Everyone touched the ball. Again, equal opportunity, anyone could get that big shot. So, Phil Jackson wanted that style of basketball before his first season as head coach. But first, he had to get the most important player on the team to buy in. And that, of course, is Michael Jordan, who at the time was in his mid-20s. You know how headstrong and competitive he is. He's still trying to prove himself in the league. And it's not like Phil had this John Paxson shot to show him. That was still years away. Phil wrote a book called 11 Rings, and in it he tells the story about going to Jordan and asking him to give the triangle another shot. Phil says, quote, basically I was planning to ask Michael, who had just won his third scoring title in a row the previous season with an average of 32.5 points per game, to reduce the number of shots he took so that other members of the team could get more involved in the offense. As a result, he probably wouldn't be able to win another scoring title. Phil goes on to say that winning that scoring title was immensely important to Jordan, but that, quote, he had a keen interest in doing whatever it took to win his first NBA championship. The change didn't happen overnight. The first year Phil was head coach, the Bulls actually lost again in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Pistons. Other changes had to be made. Scottie Pippen took on the point forward role, which he handled well as a former point guard before his growth spurt. That put the ball in Scottie's hands as much as anyone and allowed MJ to play many different roles. All of this promoting more of a collaborative team style of basketball. Chicago finally broke through in the 1990-91 playoffs, and it was clear in those playoffs things would be different. Here's a quote from Scottie Pippen to the Chicago Tribune at that time. Quote, you can tell MJ has more confidence in everyone, and I'd have to say it's come just in these playoffs. He's playing team ball, and for the first time, I can say he's not going out there looking to score. Whoa, that is a huge statement to say about Michael Jordan. The Bulls played the Lakers in the 1991 Finals. This was Magic Johnson against Michael Jordan, would literally break the internet today. Now, Magic was guarding John Paxson at times during this series, but he would often leave his man to go help on defense. Basically, Magic was betting that MJ would not pass the ball. Sure enough, Magic was right. Jordan had reverted in those finals back to his hero ball mindset. The Lakers took the lead in the fourth quarter of a closeout Game 5 for the Bulls. During a timeout, Phil challenged Jordan to pass to Paxson if necessary. That is when MJ recommitted to the approach that got him there. In that game, Paxson went on to hit 4 shots in a row, including the dagger with the Lakers within 2 with under a minute left. The Bulls and Michael Jordan had just won their first of 6 NBA titles. See, the GOAT decision that MJ made was not to pass to Paxson there in that Game 5 to win the title. It was over a year before when he listened to Phil Jackson, put his ego aside, and was willing to place team success and getting his teammates going over individual glory. Now, I am not saying MJ didn't win another scoring title again. That's one thing Phil was wrong about. He absolutely did. That actually speaks to MJ's greatness as much as anything. He led the NBA in scoring the year they won that first title and every other title year after. But the lowest scoring year of his pre-title days would have surpassed even the highest total of the years after. Point is, he never reached those same individual heights again, but started winning rings. In fact, if you want to pinpoint peak Jordan, you'd probably choose year 3. He averaged 37.1 points per game. Only Wilt Chamberlain and James Harden have done better. That year, he scored 3,041 points, surpassed only by Wilt Chamberlain, but it was 4 more years before he won that first ring. His finest playoff series? Probably against the Sixers in 89-90. He scored 43 points per game with 7.4 assists, 6.6 boards on 55% shooting in the playoffs, which they exited losing to the Pistons in Game 7. Naturally, this story about Jordan makes us think of current NBA greats. What would James Harden's career look like if he had adopted a similar mindset? How much of that has to do with his coach and GM constructing the team and offense around his superpowers? What about Carmelo Anthony? He actually played in the triangle for a bit, and we can see why Phil was frustrated. Melo is a once-in-a-generation ISO scorer, but that just is not what Phil's offense calls for. A whole nother video could be made for Kobe Bryant and why he won 5 titles. And yes, the triangle is a part of his story too. We could go on and on about great players who never won a championship and therefore won't be considered among the best of the absolute best. I'm not saying MJ's solution would have worked for all of them, But Jordan was lucky to have Phil Jackson as a head coach. Not many coaches out there could convince him on the one decision to unlock the Bulls' full potential. Now, even in 2020, millions of people consider MJ the greatest basketball player to ever live. But he wouldn't have got there had he not put the basketball in the hands of people less talented than him to become a champion.
Support AM Hoops and click subscribe. Don't miss a weekly NBA video.